When World War II cut supply lines and ration cards replaced free markets, survival, well, it shifted indoors. Families did not starve because they lacked courage or effort. They starved because they lacked foresight. Those who lived the longest were not the wealthiest or the strongest, but, the most disciplined planners. Across occupied Europe and bombed cities, kitchens became quiet fortresses. Food was hidden, stretched, preserved, and guarded with the same seriousness as ammunition. What is striking, looking back, is just how ordinary these foods were. No modern packaging, no chemicals, no electricity, just patience, knowledge, and an understanding of time. The same foods that sustained families through years of war remain effective today, not as nostalgia, but as proven insurance against disruption. Hard grains formed the backbone of long-term civilian survival. Wheat, berries, rye, barley and oats were stockpiled whole rather than milled because, intact grains resist spoilage for decades when kept dry. Families stored them in cloth sacks, wooden bins, or sealed jars buried in cellars. Milling happened only when needed, using hand-cranked grinders or stone querns. This prevented pests, reduced waste, and allowed bread, porridge or soup to be made on demand. Today, the same logic applies. Buying whole grains and storing them airtight extends shelf life dramatically, while a simple hand mill restores complete independence from commercial bakeries. Dried legumes quietly replaced meat when protein disappeared. Beans, lentils and peas were cheap, compact and filling, which made them ideal wartime staples. Families learned to soak them overnight, cook them slowly, and combine them with grains to form complete meals. Because legumes dry naturally and rehydrate easily, they could be stored for years without refrigeration. In practice, one sack of dried beans could feed a household through months of scarcity. Modern households can apply the same method by rotating dried legumes yearly and pairing them with stored grains to maintain nutrition without relying on refrigeration or supply chains. Root vegetables were preserved underground rather than canned. Potatoes, carrots, turnips, beets and parsnips were not always canned or dried. Many families relied on root cellars, sandpits or buried crates to keep vegetables alive but dormant through winter. The goal was not preservation in the modern sense, but controlled suspension. Stored cool, dark and dry, these vegetables remained edible for months. Even apartment dwellers used stairwells, basements, or insulated boxes near exterior walls. Today, a simple insulated container in a garage or shed can recreate the same effect, reducing dependence on refrigeration while maintaining fresh calories. Rendered fats became as valuable as currency, Butter, lard, tallow and dripping were rendered and stored because, fat meant heat, energy and cooking ability. Without fat, calories were hollow and meals, honestly, just inefficient. Families rendered scrap slowly, strained impurities and sealed the fat in crocks or jars. Stored cool and dark, rendered fat lasted for years. And, this practice remains relevant even today. Rendering animal fat or storing clarified butter allows for long-term calorie storage without freezing, providing dense energy during shortages or cold conditions. Dried fruit provided sugar, vitamins, and perhaps most importantly, morale. Apples, pears, plums, berries, and even citrus peel were dried on racks, near stoves, or in attic spaces. These foods weren't luxury items, but rather strategic reserves against vitamin deficiency and morale collapse. A handful of dried fruit could turn bland porridge into a sustaining meal. The same technique works now, really. Thin slicing, slow drying and airtight storage preserve fruit for years without preservatives, offering nutrition and psychological comfort when variety disappears. Fermented foods preserved nutrition without fuel. Sauerkraut, pickled vegetables and fermented dairy allowed families to preserve produce without cooking or electricity. Fermentation improved shelf life, aided digestion and prevented disease. Large crocks were stored in cellars, skimmed regularly and consumed gradually. Today, fermentation remains one of the most reliable low-energy preservation methods. A simple salt ratio and clean container can preserve vegetables indefinitely while improving nutritional value. Salt itself was stockpiled as a survival tool. Salt preserved meat, vegetables and fish, but it also prevented deficiency and illness. Families stored it in bulk, knowing it would never spoil. In wartime, salt shortages were devastating. Stored properly, salt remains usable forever. Modern preparedness should treat salt as infrastructure, not seasoning. A sealed container in a dry place secures preservation capability long-term. Sugar and honey stabilized food systems and labor output. Sugar was rationed heavily, but families who stored it early used it sparingly for preservation and energy. Honey, when available, was even more valuable due to its indefinite shelf life. These sweeteners preserved fruit, stabilized fermentation, and supported heavy labor during cold months. Today, both remain effective long-term calorie sources if kept sealed and dry. Why these foods still matter now? What sustained World War II families was not abundance, but compatibility with time. These foods tolerated neglect, required minimal tools, and adapted to human rhythm rather than machines. They still work because they align with natural processes rather than industrial ones. Learning to store them properly is not regression. It is resilience. If you value real survival history and practical lessons drawn from the hardest years of the 20th century, subscribe to the channel and share this video with fellow history enthusiasts. These stories endure because the knowledge still matters.